Hi, in this video we're looking at this question here. Demonstrate the group policy application of a different wallpaper, default home web page and software deployment applied to each group that we set up in the previous question. So back to our server, what we need to do is get hold of wallpapers number one, and get them on the server into a share, and also some software to deploy. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to move that out of the road temporarily. Here is some wallpapers on the desktop of the host machine, and I'm going to drag it across to the guest machine. By far the simplest way to get things onto your guest computer. Then I'm going to cut that and put it on our drive C. There's drive C and paste it there. So there's our wallpaper folder. What I want to do is also show you another way to do things, to transfer stuff between the host and the guest. I'm going to go devices, down to shared folders and shared folder settings, and we're going to hit the plus symbol here, and we're going to find a folder that we want to share with this virtual machine on the host. So let's go to other. So this is going back to the host machine. And rather slowly. Okay, so we're going to go to, for example, the NVMe, which is my external drive, and what I want to get is MSIs for testing. Okay. So I want to select this folder here. MSIs for testing on drive V. I want it for read only, and I want to auto mount it and go OK. So what I've done is I've mounted, in theory, this folder on drive V to read and nothing else, just read, and go OK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now you can see MSIs for testing has now come up as a shared folder off a server called VBox server. Okay, so in here I can see files that are in a folder on my host machine, and they just come up as a shared drive for my guest virtual machine, and so I can copy files off this. So let's just go, say, edit pad light and you know, Inkscape, putty, free, whatever, those sorts of things. Simple stuff. Let's go copy those, and I want to put them in a folder on my desktop called MSIs. So I'm going to go MSI. So MSI stands for Microsoft Installer. So in this folder I'm going to paste those, and I grab those off a shared folder which comes up as a network drive. Okay, so that's a pretty nifty trick. So on devices, down to shared folders, we can, you know, share a folder that's actually on the host machine. I don't need that now, so I'm going to remove the selected shared folder, edit, no, because I'm going to remove it, and go OK. So I only needed it for the time that I needed to create the file, I'll copy the files onto my drive C. So now I've got wallpapers and MSIs as folders, and what I need to do is I need to share these so that we're capable of deploying these things via group policy. So first thing with the wallpapers, look at the properties. We're going to go to sharing, advanced sharing. We're going to share the folder, look at the permissions, we're going to remove everyone, and we're going to add in administrators group. So we go to the administrators group and go OK and hit full control, and then we're going to add in the authenticated users. So we check the name there, and that'll be authenticated users. With authenticated users, we want them to have read and write on the share permissions. And then on the security tab, first of all, we get rid of all the inherited permissions. Whoops, what was that? Accidentally clicked on something that popped up. So down to advanced, and then we disable inheritance, because you can see all of these things come up as inherited permissions. So I'm going to disable those and remove them, and go OK, and yes. And now I need to edit this to put the groups in that I want. So I want to add in the administrators group, ADM, check it, come up with the administrators group, and go OK, and I want to give them full control. And then I need to add in authenticated users. So these are authenticated users, and I want them to have read only, actually. So read only, apply. I think I may have actually give the sharing more than read, so let's change that. Go back to advanced sharing and look at the permissions. Authenticated user, I gave them write as well, so let's just make sure that it's only read. So I want them to only be able to read the wallpapers. I don't want them to be able to change them. Otherwise, goodness knows what our users are going to do to our pictures that go on our desktops. They could change them, they could make them look terrible, so we won't do that. The only person that's going to be able to change wallpapers is the administrator. Okay, so now we've got share and NTFS or security permissions set up exactly the same way as read for authenticated users and full control for administrators. That's the way it should be. And we're going to do exactly the same for our MSIs. These are our applications that we're going to install via group policy. So we're going to go properties, sharing, advanced sharing, tick the box to share it, and then look at the permissions, remove everyone out of it, and then add in the administrators group. So there's the administrators group, and go OK, give them full control, and then add in the authenticated users, AUT, there's the authenticated users, and they get read only. So that's OK, and OK there. So now we go to the security or NTFS permissions. They need to match the sharing permissions. First thing we've got to do is get rid of all the inherited permissions. So I go advanced, disable all these inherited permissions. Read and execute, list and read, and that's it. Okay, so that means our NTFS permissions and our share permissions now match on the MSI, and we did the same thing on the wallpapers. So that's the sharing we need. Now, if we want to check this, we can just go double backslash and the name of your server, which in my case is PDC, and you'll see that the MSI folder is shared, the wallpapers folder is shared, the profiles that we had from before are shared, so that, you know, it's all shared. That's good. Okay. So now what we need to look at is the application group policy. So we've set up the wallpapers. We've got the software that we need to deploy. Now we need to set up the group policy, you know, for each group. Okay, for each group. So In here, under our server manager, under the tools, we want to go down to group policy management. And I'm going to expand out the forest and the domain and my domain. Expand those out. And what you'll see is default domain policy. I don't want to show that again. Now, I don't want to use the default domain policy. What I want to do is create a group, a policy for each of the groups. Now remember, the two groups I've got, if I just open up the tools and look at Active Directory users and computers, the two groups I've got under users here is G1 and G2. So there's my two groups, okay, group 1, group 2. So I'll just minimise that for the moment. Go back to group policy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right mouse click on the domain and create a group policy in the domain and link it here. And this is going to be for group 1 or G1 only. And I'm going to do another one. Right mouse click, create a new group policy. And I'm going to call this G2 only. Okay, so we've got these two group policies that can apply to only those groups. So how do we do that? When you have a look at any of the group policies, you'll see some security filtering down here. So you can see that it applies at the domain level for all authenticated users. Every time I create a new group policy, it's the same thing, applied at the domain to all authenticated users. That's a bit bigger than just group 1 or just G2. So I need to make this so it's only to those two groups. So let's look at G1 first of all. And what we're going to do is we're going to add that group. So I'm going to go G1, check the name, and I'm going to put in group 1. So group 1 gets applied to there, but at the moment I've also got all authenticated users. I'm going to delete all authenticated users, remove them. And do you want to remove this delegation privilege? I'm going to go OK. And then it comes up with a little warning for me. You can see this warning. Group policy requires each computer account to have permissions to read the group policy data from the domain controller in order to use group policy settings to be successfully applied. Removing the authenticated users group may prevent processing of user group policies. Please add the domain computers of the authenticated users security group with at least read-only permissions. Okay, so if we don't have authenticated users, then we need domain computers. So I need to add into here domain computers. So that means domain computers that have got a member that's a member of the G1 group would then have this policy applied. So I'm going to add domain computers. So if I just go DOM and check the name and pick domain computers, that one there. So now this group policy only applies to that group, G1. I'm going to look at G2. At the moment, it currently applies to all authenticated users, whether they're in G2 or G1 or any other group. So I need to get rid of that and apply it only to group 2. But in order to do that, I need to pick that it's also a domain computer. Otherwise, it doesn't get applied. So I'm going to add group 2 to this security filtering. I'm going to remove authenticated users, and it comes up with the same error. And I'm going to add in domain computers. There's the domain computers group. And go OK. So now this is a policy that will work. So now I've got two group policies that will apply just to their group. So what I need to do is apply a different wallpaper, a different home page, and deploy some software. So what I'm going to do is on group 1, let's edit it. Right mouse click and edit the group policy. And so on this, I'm going to do some software policies here. I'm going to do software settings. This is where I can do a software installation. Now I'm only going to do this, there's nothing in there obviously, so if I do a right mouse click I can go new package. And I need to point to a package that I want to use. Now the secret to this is to make sure that you use a UNC based network path so that the client can go back to the same network share and retrieve the file. If I point it to a local drive C share or directory, then obviously that's not on every single client machine. So it needs to be back to the server share in order to retrieve the file. So where we've got drive C and MSIs and putting that in and going open, that obviously wouldn't work because it's a local drive C. So what we really need to do is go to network, and we want the PDC, and we want the MSI shared folder, and now we pick the MSI program. So I'm going to put edit pad light, and publish just means it makes it available, and so then they can install it. Assigned means it actually installs it. I normally go to advanced because it gives you a little bit more control. So I'm going to go OK on advanced. And in here, under deployment, I'm going to tell it that it's assigned, which means deploy it, install it. And I want to install it, application when it falls out of scope, do not deploy, add remove. Install this application at logon. I'm going to tick that box there. So I want this to install when the person logs on. Okay? And I'm going to go OK. So you can see that the source is a network share, which means that the client will be able to get to it. Okay, so that's the first thing that we've done. We've deployed some software. Now what we need is a new wallpaper. So I'm going to go to Administrative Templates, down to Desktop, and then down to Desktop again. And on here is, I'm going to enable an active desktop. That's the first thing I'm going to do, enable it. And go OK. And then I'm going to put a desktop wallpaper. Now again, we need to look at the way, there's two examples. There's a local path, or there is a UNC naming path, which is a network path. So it's obvious we need to use the network path. So to get to the, we need to enable it, number one. And then we need to go double backslash PDC backslash wallpapers backslash and then the name of the file. I'm going to use splash underscore .jpg. I want to go fill, so we fill it and we'll go I don't know what this is. Go away. So what I want to do is go OK. Now what I want to do is I want to check to see whether this is actually retrievable. So I'm going to go copy. And I'm going to go right mouse click and run off the host and go Control V and test to see whether I can actually retrieve it. So yes, I can. I can actually get to that image, so I know it's going to work. So I'm going to go OK on that. And the other thing I need to do is, so that's a wallpaper. And what else I need to do in here is to set a home page, default home page. So I've done the software deployment, I've done a new wallpaper, now I need a default home page. So that's actually a preference, not actually a policy. So if I go to preferences and I go to control panel and then down to internet settings, and do a right mouse click in here and go new Internet Explorer 10, which works for 10 and anything higher. And in here I want to set the home page. So I'm going to go http://www. Let's go dogpile.com. Okay, so that's a completely different search engine. And you'll notice this has got a red underline, so we need to hit the F5 key to make it green. So now it will be applied. And the other thing I probably should put in here is the proxy settings. So if I go to connections, LAN setting, I could put in here the proxy settings as well. It wasn't actually requested, but proxy.tafeNSW.edu.au, port number 8080, and you notice it's red underlined, so I have to hit the F5 to make it green. It's all green, and I don't need to bypass the proxy for anything, so that'll do. So now I've got a preference that sets a home page and a proxy setting in the browser for Group 1. So that's everything we needed to do for Group 1. So I'm going to file and exit out of that and do the same thing for Group 2. Right mouse click and edit. In the software policies, in the software settings and installing software, right mouse click and do a new package. And you'll notice it picks up the last thing that I did, which is very good. So I'm going to put in Inkscape or Putty Suite or something. I don't know, Inkscape will do. Open that. We're going to go advanced and go OK. And then on the tab for deployment, I want to say that it's assigned and we want to install the application at logon. So that's in there. Okay, so now for administrative templates for the desktop and the desktop, we want to enable the desktop, and now we want to put a desktop wallpaper in there and enable that. I'm just going to go Control V because that puts the last thing that we knew worked, but just change the actual file that we want. So I'm just going to go Vader, Darth Vader, and we want that to be Phil. And I'm going to copy that, Control C, right mouse click and go Run, and go Control V and paste it in. Yes, it gets Vader, so that's good. Okay, so we know that's working. I'm going to go OK on that. And then the last thing that we need to do is to go to the preferences, control panel setting, internet settings, right mouse click and go new Internet Explorer 10. And we need to set a different home page. So go http://www.yahoo.com.au. There we go. Nobody ever goes to that. F5 to make it green. And then we're going to go to the connections and the LAN settings, and we're going to set the proxy. Proxy, proxy.tafeNSW.edu.au, port number 8080, and hit F5 to make that. Whoops, what did it do? Come back. Alt tab. That's where I was. And then I'm going to press F5 to make that green and go OK. And go OK again. So now we've got a new preference that gives them a different home page. We've got different software to install, different wallpaper, different home page. We're going to test it to make sure that it works. So we're going to go Exit. And whenever we've done any group policy type stuff, I normally open a command prompt and do a GP update /force. So I'm going to do a CMD on here, and I'm going to do a GP update /force. and that should push out all the policies. Now, when we log in to the client machine, that doesn't necessarily mean the policy is going to apply straight away, because they've already got a policy cached locally on their hard drive, and the first time you log in, it will use the cached policy, but on the way out, it remembers that there's a change, and then the next time. So often it takes 2 times in order for this to work. So let's see if we can get this to work with B2, password 9. It's taking a little while to log in, so that sort of indicates maybe it's doing something. We'll see. The one thing I don't like is a Windows big black nothing. That's always a problem. I do have a lot of stuff running in the background here, so perhaps it looks like it's finished. What's my hard drive look like at the moment? I've got plenty of space. That's okay. Okay, I'm going to reset my computer. I think I had a problem with my server and had to restart it, so it's quite possible I needed to also restart the workstation. Okay, let's see how it's going. Yeah, we're back up. Let's see if we can log in. So we want to know that our Active Directory, I've already got it open. Users and computers, computer's still there. Knows it's still there, that's good. And on DHCP, well, the good thing in the background, we've seen that it's turned up and it's also got the software installed. And if we were going to run Internet Explorer, let's try IEXPL Internet Explorer, there it is. Let's run Internet Explorer. It's going to go to Dogpile, which is our preference. So all 3 things that we suggested that this group policy do has indeed worked. Okay, so that was user B2. So let's try a user in the other group. So let's log out of sign out, and let's log in as a member of the other group, so that'd either be U1 or U2. That was B2, let's try U2. Other user, U2, and the usual password. One good thing, we've got Vader on the screen. Let's see if the software came across. What was it called anyway? Edit pad lights there. I can't remember what the software was. Maybe it got installed, maybe it didn't. It might have been just that particular pack. Oh, it was in Inkscape, that's right. So I don't see an Inkscape on there. No, I just see inking and typing. So I suspect that it hasn't installed that particular application, and it might be that that particular application wouldn't install on Windows 10 anyway. So it was a bit of a gamble. So what I am going to do is just check to see whether Internet Explorer's homepage is IEXPLO Explorer. Open that. And it's tried to go to Yahoo. Okay, so it's obviously got a proxy setting, and it's tried to go to Yahoo. And it had a DNS failure actually. I probably didn't put the right settings in on the home page. I must have put something else. I don't think I put the 7 on there. Yahoo 7.
Yahoo.
I had yahoo.com.au, so I needed to put the right thing on there. Obviously, I put the wrong thing, which is why DNS failed. It did try. It did try to get there, so it did what I told it to do. It just, there wasn't a particular page there. And so TAFE has just said the page couldn't be resolved. That's okay. So we've had success in both group policies, and that ends this particular video. So we've finished this demonstrate.